Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. The 15th BRICS summit begins on Tuesday. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to leave for Johannesburg. The summit in South Africa seeks to push for a shift in global geopolitics. A final countdown begins for Chandrayaan-3. All eyes on Wednesday's soft landing on the moon. India's space agency says all systems are working perfectly and no contingencies are anticipated. Cleanup operations are underway across Southern California after the first tropical storm hits the states in over 8 decades. Hilary is expected to weaken, but flood risks remain. And India's Praggnanandhaa enters into the Chess World Cup final, setting up a clash with world number 1 Magnus Carlsen. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi departs for South Africa on Tuesday to attend the 15th BRICS summit. Now, this is the first in-person gathering of the 5 emerging world economies since the pandemic.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is taking part in the 15th edition of BRICS summit. The leaders meet in Johannesburg from August 22nd to 24th. The summit will provide an opportunity to review progress of the initiatives launched by the grouping and identify future areas of activity.
Insofar as the BRICS expansion is concerned, we have been very clear from the start that we have a positive intent and an open mind when it comes to the BRICS expansion.
The Prime Minister will take part in the BRICS Africa Outreach and BRICS Plus dialogue. The PM has visited South Africa before, back in July 2016 and July 2018. South Africa is the current chair of the BRICS summit. This is the first gathering of the 5 nations since 2019. A business delegation from India will also be part of the summit.
The participants are likely to deliberate on issues such as global economic recovery amid ongoing geopolitical challenges, sustainable development goals, something that would, I think, continue throughout the different sessions of the BRICS summit, women-led development, as also addressing the concern and interest and priorities of the Global South.
After BRICS, PM Modi is also set to visit Greece. This will be the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to the country in 40 years. India and Greece enjoy cultural ties which have strengthened in recent years through cooperation in several areas.
During the Honourable Prime Minister's visit to Greece, both sides will look to expand and diversify the trade and investment segment of cooperation, deepen and expand the defence and security partnership, infrastructure cooperation, shipbuilding industry, something which is a great strength of Greece and where the opportunities, extensive opportunities are there. The visit would give both sides an opportunity to discuss also the regional and global issues of mutual interest and help broaden and deepen our bilateral engagement.
It's hoped the Prime Minister's visit to both these nations will open new paths of diplomatic ties and boost economic development.
DD India correspondent Amritpal Singh joins us with more. Amrit, good morning. Let us know what would be on top of Prime Minister's mind as he attends the Johannesburg summit.
That's right. The Prime Minister arrives here in Johannesburg this evening. In fact, he's arriving in the afternoon if you talk about the Johannesburg time, but Indian time at around 5:15. The Prime Minister lands in 5:15 p.m. That is, he lands in Johannesburg. He straight goes to attend the BRICS Business Leaders Forum, where he would be interacting with the business leaders. He later goes on to attend the BRICS Leaders Retreat. As you know, the BRICS Summit is kicking off today. It will happen over today, tomorrow and day after. Over the next 3 days, we could see the Prime Minister intervene on a number of issues, which include stressing the need for greater cooperation and partnership between the developing countries, or what is commonly referred to as the Global South. Remember, this BRICS Summit comes days before India holds the Leaders Summit of the G20 in New Delhi. And under India's presidency, cooperation amongst the G20 or the amongst the Global South especially is a key priority of India. So the Prime Minister would be utilizing this forum to bring that up. He could, touch upon issues like climate change and innovative solutions to it, like lifestyle for environment or life, the reform of multilateral institutions, especially the international financial institutions like the World Bank and the IMF, so that they reflect the present realities. Cross-border terrorism is going to be on top of India's agenda at the BRICS Summit. Prime Minister Modi could push for the BRICS leaders to develop a consensus and a zero-tolerance approach for cross-border terror, of which, of course, India is a victim, but, the scourge of terrorism affects the whole world. So therefore, in this grouping in which over 42% of the global population lives, is really a matter of global concern. So the Prime Minister, we could see the Prime Minister figure that or raise that prominently during his interventions at the BRICS Summit.
All right, Amrit, also tell us if there could be talk on the expansion of BRICS Forum.
Oh yes, it will be prominently discussed. It's on the top of the agenda of the South African presidency. In fact, South Africa under its presidency has invited over 70 heads of state or government from around the world. Of course, from the African continent, but there are, heads of states or government coming from Latin America, from around the world, Iran, Indonesia, etc. So expansion will figure prominently on the agenda and will be discussed at length. Over 40 countries have expressed interest in joining the BRICS, and there is a broad consensus that the time has come for this grouping to be expanded so that the voice of the Global South, of the developing countries, can be strengthened and the global governance architecture can be changed. But do not expect any major announcements at this summit in terms of countries actually joining, because there is much road to be traveled before countries can join. That is to say, they need to chalk out what the criteria for joining is, who should be admitted, who shouldn't be admitted. Countries have their different interests, have different reasons for expanding this, so a convergence needs to be brought on that. At the Johannesburg Declaration, what we could see is probably a draft resolution or a draft proposal for criteria to be evolved for who all can be admitted, what conditions or requirements countries need to meet before they can be admitted into the grouping.
All right, Amrit, thank you for joining in with those inputs. And from here, we now turn focus to Chandrayaan-3, that is the Indian spacecraft. Chandrayaan-3 is looking to find a perfect landing spot on the moon's challenging terrain. Indian Space Agency ISRO released images of possible landing sites on Monday. Meanwhile, Chandrayaan-3 has established contact with Chandrayaan-2 orbiter, the previous iteration of the Indian moon mission that was launched in 2014.
Chandrayaan-3 has started the process of identifying safe landing areas on the surface of the moon. The Indian Space Research Agency ISRO on Monday released images of possible sites. A special camera on board Chandrayaan-3 is locating safe areas without boulders or deep trenches. The Indian Space Research Organization informed that the lander Vikram, that has been orbiting the moon since August 5, has now established two-way communication with Chandrayaan-2 orbiter. According to the Indian Space Agency, the lander module with the rover is likely to touch down on the surface of the moon at around 6:04 p.m. on Wednesday, 23rd August. Chandrayaan-3, which was launched on July 14, is an ambitious mission of ISRO. Its primary objective is putting a lander and rover in the highlands near the south pole of the moon and demonstrating end-to-end landing and roving capabilities. It will also take a number of scientific measurements on the surface and from orbit. Achieving a soft landing is the most challenging part of the mission. If successful, Chandrayaan-3 will mark India's entry into a club of countries comprising the US, Russia and China that have successfully accomplished lunar landings. Raghav Kumar Jha reporting for DD India.
Former ISRO chairperson Dr. K. Sivan spoke exclusively to DD India. He said that Chandrayaan-3 is expected to be successful as it has ample redundancy features and can also make a soft landing with self-correction built into the system.
Chandrayaan-3 is all set to make a soft landing and touchdown on the surface of the moon on August 23rd. And this is a very crucial mission. All eyes are on India's ISRO, and the scientific community is excited about this mission. Let's take forward the conversation with Dr. K. Sivan. Thank you for talking to Doordarshan, DD News and DD India. So what does it mean to India with this kind of soft landing, and where does it put India in the big league of the spacefaring nations? And also, we've been talking about interplanetary missions, we've been talking about solar mission. There are a lot of missions ahead. So where does this put India in the spacefaring nations?
See, this the soft landing on the moon, it will give India this new technology, with which we can land safely on a celestial body. That's the technology the India will gain.
Okay.
So by the process, we will be that one among the four nations where has the capability.
Yes.
That way, that is one good thing.
Right.
And the second one is this, that this particular mission is going near South Pole region, which is a shadow region, unexplored region. So scientists are feeling that it may give new science.
Okay.
So that way, this mission is going to give data for the scientific community of India, and for that matter, for the whole world.
Yeah. So what makes the scientists confident that this landing is going to be almost perfect and almost close to the 100% soft landing? What makes the team confident?
Three types of improvements have been incorporated, and with this three types of improvements, this operational regime of the lantern, technically, the scientifically, that is the region with which this is working is enhanced.
Yes.
So with that one, we have confidence.
Right.
And anytime that one thing I am telling you, it is not that here we have the 100% confidence, whereas Chandrayaan only 50% confidence. It is not like that.
It is the equal confidence that all the scientists have.
All the time that we are going ahead with the full confidence only. Without confidence, we won't launch.
Right. So tell us a little bit more about Pragyan. What all Pragyan will do once it starts, once it is deployed by the lander. What are we expecting? How will that be tracked? Because we are told that it connects with the lander Vikram, and then from there the data is related. How does that work? Can you just
see that Pragyan is actually the rover.
Yes.
So once the lander is landed safely, that is 2 hours after that, the Pragyan will come out.
Yes.
And from that time onwards, it will be roving over the surface of the moon. And at that time, it will do the scientific experiments also.
Right.
And the communications with the ground is through lander.
Thank you very much for talking to DD India, sir. Thank you so much. That was Dr. K. Sivan ending on a very positive note and hoping all success for Chandrayaan 3, and as confident as he was before when CH3, that is Chandrayaan 2, was launched. With cameraman Balu, Asha Khanam, DD India, Bangalore.
And up next, we take a look at other stories making it to the news today. The Principal Secretary to India's Prime Minister has chaired a high-level meeting to review the current status and preparedness of COVID-19 in the country. There are concerns over a new variant, but officials say that only 223 cases were reported in India in the past week. The government has asked the states to maintain a close watch on the new global variants of COVID. A much-awaited Bharat New Car Assessment Program will be launched by India's Minister of Road Transport and Highways, Nitin Gadkari, on Tuesday. This new program aims to increase the safety standards of Indian automobiles and bring them up to the international standards. This new program will crash test the cars voluntarily offered by manufacturers in the country. After comprehensive crash tests, the cars will be given safety ratings. Still to come on this edition of DD India Live, Japan likely to announce the date to begin Fukushima water release on Tuesday. Prime Minister Kishida holds cabinet meet. US President Joe Biden visits Maui after the devastating wildfires, tells survivors, "The nation grieves with you." Mayor says 850 people are still missing. India unveils the 17-member squad for the forthcoming Asia Cup. Shreyas Iyer, KL Rahul make a return to the Indian dressing room.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibilities. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Namaste India.
Namaste land.
Marhaban ila al-Hind.
Zari India. Salam India.
Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
Mui India.
Nahnu hunud.
India.
Ma Hindi hasti.
Mung Hindian.
Salam Hindustan.
We are India.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India Live and I'm Preeti. Getting more international updates, Japan's government could soon announce its plans to begin discharging the treated water from the wrecked Fukushima plant. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is expected to discuss a proposed launch date with his cabinet on Tuesday, and reports suggest the controversial release could begin as soon as Thursday. The country has accumulated more than 1 million tons of wastewater used to cool the Fukushima nuclear power plant since the 2011 earthquake and tsunami. All right, let's get more on this from Chris Gilbert, who's joining us with more. Chris, good morning. We've just told our viewers that the Japanese cabinet would be taking a call on the final date when the release of the radioactive water would begin. How soon can we expect that?
Well, reports are, or a soft announcement, you might look at it as, that it might be as soon as this Thursday. It has been 10 years in the making that they have been treating this water and storing this water, and now the storage site is at 98% capacity. It has to go somewhere. This is the solution that they've come. Have invited in the IAEA for 2 years of testing, the International Atomic Watchdog, and of course last month got the rubber stamp from them. There were reports earlier this month that the discharge may start.
And from here, we'll get more inputs from Chris Gilbert, but at present, we'll tell you that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is departing for South Africa to participate in the 15th BRICS summit. And these are the visuals on your screens wherein the Prime Minister is ready to depart for the 15th BRICS summit. And we've told you how this would be for the first time that the leaders would be gathering for the in-person meeting of the BRICS summit owing to the restrictions put forth by the pandemic during the last 2 years. And also we have been getting you continuous inputs wherein we've talked of the priority areas for the BRICS nations and how there is talk of expansion of BRICS forum as well. Also, when we talk of the agenda which would be put forth by India during its participation at the BRICS summit, remember this meeting and this forum comes just before the G20 Leaders Summit, which will be hosted by India next month. And this means that this is indeed an apt forum wherein India can put forth the concerns for Global South. And there has been appreciation of the role India has been playing all across the different fora wherein it has put forth the concerns of Global South. And this, in fact, is an apt forum to further strengthen the grouping, the Global South, and also how India is to put forth the challenges of climate change and how to incorporate life into how the challenges of climate change have to be tackled. Also, our correspondent Amritpal Singh, just a while back, during an interaction with him, he enlisted the priority areas for India: cross-border terrorism, and also a single currency to be used within the BRICS can also be mooted, but there is but not an immediate solution to this can be foreseen as discussions are underway. And also we've told how there is talk of expansion of BRICS as a forum. Close to 40 countries have expressed their interest in joining BRICS, and these are some of the important points and some of the important agenda that could be taken up when Prime Minister Narendra Modi participates in the 15th BRICS summit that will be organized in Johannesburg in South Africa. And from here, we go back to our story for which Chris Gilbert is with us. Chris, we were discussing how soon can we expect Japan to release Fukushima water into the ocean. Let's continue with it. All right, I think we've lost contact there with Chris Gilbert. We'll try getting back to him again to get more on that. Meanwhile, we'll tell you more about the Hawaii wildfires. When we talk of it, then US President Joe Biden, in fact, accompanying his wife, First Lady Jill Biden, both of them visited parts of the island state of Maui hit by the deadly wildfires. More than 100 people died and 800 are still missing. Biden is being criticized for not visiting the island earlier. Caroline Malone reports from Washington on this.
It's been 2 weeks since wildfires devastated parts of Hawaii. And on Tuesday, US President Joe Biden touched down on the island to visit along with the First Lady Jill Biden. He's been criticized, though, for not getting there fast enough. There may at the moment be more than 1,000 federal emergency responders, but there's also some concern over funding to help people on the island. The head of the Federal Emergency Agency said on Sunday, there's so much demand for money from the National Disaster Relief Fund that some causes may have to be delayed until next year. That, as data comes out saying the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration has 15 weather-related or climate disaster events on their books in the US, even before the Hawaii disaster happened on August 8th this year. Each of those has cost $1 billion in damage. Hawaii is likely to cost even more. We're looking at an estimated $6 billion in damage. And that's even only as the hurricane season gets started here. At the moment, we're already seeing the West Coast hit by floods from Tropical Storm Hilary, and that has really impacted large parts of Southern California. There are also calls for President Biden to declare a climate state of emergency. Some politicians here saying when you've got more than 100 people who've died, more than 800 missing, and entire towns devastated, then if that isn't a climate emergency in Hawaii, then what is? If Biden did call it a climate emergency, it could allow Congress to invoke emergency powers, potentially for policy change, potentially to slow down greenhouse gas emissions, have large-scale transport changes, potentially more impactful than we've had before in the US. But with many things here, it is a political risk. Many don't call this climate change. Many favour continuing to use oil and gas despite the carbon pollution from it. Now, the White House is saying that Biden has effectively been calling this a climate emergency for some time, and that they and Biden are taking all the necessary action needed for people in Hawaii. Caroline Malone in Washington for DD India.
On to sports updates. Now, India's Praggnanandhaa has created history and he defeated world number 3 Fabiano Caruana in the tie breaks and entered the Chess World Cup final, where he will meet world number 1 Magnus Carlsen. All right, that's it in this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, which is formerly known as Twitter, and also Instagram. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.